Welcome back to the Georgia Show. It is April 30th, and Bill, a lot going on from Ukraine. They just signed the minerals deal, by the way, which is huge breaking news. So we've been covering stuff all around the world, but right now we're going to focus on Georgia, and it's going to be a very impactful and informative show. How's it going to roll, Bill?
So we're going to have a story of an unusual set of rules and their sequence within the Georgia GOP. We'll hear from Hank Sullivan, who has done just an extraordinary amount of research to understand this. We might cover a couple other small topics along with that. We'll also talk about, in general, a theme of things fitting together. And let me show you the theme.
Okay.
And that is, oh, what a tangled web they weave. So that will become apparent as we get through the show about why we're naming it that today. So we'll do that. We'll look at some other stuff here in Georgia. A couple things nationally that delve into about that same theme, and we will try to squeeze that all into 60 minutes.
It's going to be a challenge, but I think we can do it. We are brought to you by the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. We put a lot of effort into this whole show and into the paper over the last several years. I think we were the first to really focus on Georgia independent media and make it work. One way you can support us is with our no ad subscriptions. So please click on the link there that Bill's showing you on the page, the advertisement, and on the homepage of the Georgia Record, and it'll take you to a sign up place. It costs $10 a month, or there's an annual subscription for $100 a year. I just had somebody call me the other night or email me and say, "Hey, I want to sign up for a 5-year subscription." So we made room for them to do that, and we love that. It allows you to go all over our network with no ads, and it's really effective, and people love it. There's nothing on their phones. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Bill, and let's get right to it. There's a lot to go through today.
Okay. So again, our theme for today is, oh, what a tangled web they weave. And we're going to start with Hank Sullivan. So, Mr. Sullivan, thank you for making time to join us this evening.
Oh, glad to be here.
All right. So you have done just an amazing amount of research to uncover things that the laws require from Georgia's GOP, yet they seem to perhaps not be in alignment with some of those requirements. So I'm not going to steal your thunder. Let me turn it over to you, sir, to get us started.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And I've been thinking about a way to try to make people understand what this is. And I didn't think of this opportunity until I didn't have enough time to get the real props here. But just imagine in my right hand here that I have a football. Football games are played with a certain set of rules, right? Imagine I have a baseball in my left hand. Baseball has another set of rules. You can't play football with a baseball, and you can't play baseball with a football. Now, both of these are balls, but they're different. There's a different definition to them. And what we have here is we have our state Republican Party that is claiming to be a corporation, a nonprofit corporation, but it's also claiming to be a political party. Well, corporations have certain rules and political parties have certain rules, but they're not the same rules. Now, both of those entities have members, but a political party has a certain type of member that has a certain definition, like a baseball, and a nonprofit corporation has members, but they're different members and it's a different definition. So you can't say that these things are the same thing because the definitions that make them what they are not the same thing, including the fact that this particular nonprofit corporation doesn't even have members. So maybe that's a better way to explain what's going on here. What's really difficult is that the powers that be in the Georgia Republican Party are gaslighting an entire population of Republicans. They will not come off of this story. They are dead set on maintaining this narrative that these two things, this nonprofit corporation and this political party, are the same thing. They're not, they cannot be, and there is no ballot access. for a nonprofit corporation. Just look at the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation is a nonprofit corporation. So do you think just by changing the name of the Clinton Foundation to say the Arkansas Democratic Party, that all of a sudden this nonprofit corporation gets to have ballot access? Well, that's exactly what has happened here. We had a Republican Party of Georgia, the Georgia Republican Party, that in 2014, they created a corporation. And then over a period of 2 to 3 years, all of a sudden, this entity became that entity, and that's how they're operating. It's not the case. They cannot do it. It's not lawful. And they keep gaslighting the entire population to believe that these two things are the same, and they are not.
Hank, I took the liberty of pulling a couple pages out of your latest Substack that may help a bit get us started on this dialogue too. And this on the left is an original front page of the Rules of the Georgia Republican Party. That one was signed by John Paget some years ago. And the one on the right was until recently unsigned, and it says Rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. And essentially what you're saying is, this is not as simple as just sticking INC on the end of the name, is it?
No, it's not. Okay, so what you have there on the screen on the left, that's the Rules of the Georgia Republican Party. That is, as far as I can tell, that's the last known set of rules for the Georgia Republican Party. And it is signed, notice it is signed there by John Paget, who was the chairman at the time of the Georgia Republican Party. But also notice that stamp. That was a stamp as received by the Georgia Secretary of State's office. And now those are dated May 18th, 2013. And for all I can imagine, those are still the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, because anytime it says in section in Title 21, section 21-2-110, when it's defining what political parties are, it says that political parties have to report anytime of their material information changes. So if you have a new election and you have a different, say a different chairman, then you've got to file that information with the Secretary of State's office. And until that information is filed with the Secretary of State's office, then the person who was the chairman is still the chairman. That's the way that the law is written there. And so anytime you change the rules, or anytime you change, say, the state committee, the members of the state committee, there's well over 100 members of the state committee. According to the law, it's supposed to be public information, because the people that they represent in their areas of the state need to know who they are. So if there's party information that they need to be able to understand or impart to the party who's actually the operating material, the operating organization here, then they would have a way to do that. So on the right-hand side, you have the next iteration of the Georgia Republican Party rules, but it says they're the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Now, notice they're not signed. Until recently, there has never been a signed, which is a form of certification. It's certified, as the ones on the left are, certified by the chairman. But that one is not signed. In fact, none of these have been signed that have ink on them from 2013 all the way through to 2019. And do you have that one that was signed by David Schaefer?
I do. Before we move on, I want to point out, you mentioned a stamp. So when these and other documents are filed with the Secretary of State's office, just like filing a court document, they put a stamp on it. And it's not super easy to see, but it is down on the lower right-hand corner of the left-hand page. And it shows, in fact, that it was filed. Let's go
People may be asking right now, well, how do we know that other copies were not filed? Well, all of the open records requests from 2013 all the way through the present have yielded very little. In fact, what you're showing right there is one of the answers from the open record staff. Secretary of State's office does not have the records responsive to your requested highlight below. So they've been asked to, the Secretary of State's office has been asked to respond with all of the sets of rules that have been filed with their office from 2013 all the way until 2020. And until recently, there has been no evidence that any of them have been filed. But obviously, this is telling you that they didn't have that information. So it appears as though that none of these sets of rules have been filed. So go back to the picture of the one with David Schaefer's name on it.
Okay, here we go.
All right, so notice on this one, David Schaefer was the immediate past chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, whatever that even means today. But notice that when he signed these rules, he scratched out the ink in both the signature block and the main area in the middle of the title page there. He scratched both of those out. So whether these have been filed, there has been no evidence given to anyone who's submitted open records requests responding with this. So again, the law was not followed, apparently, because the Secretary of State's office does not have this document. I find it very interesting that Mr. Schaefer did not sign a rules of the Georgia Republican Party that he did not first strike through the ink.
Yeah. Now here's this is one of the pages from within the document. Is that correct? And right there it says these rules shall become effective upon filing.
Yes. It says that even in the rules, so you have the law says that the rules are not effective until filing. You have the rules that say these rules are not effective until filing. So as I said, until you have a set of rules that is certified and received by the Secretary of State's office, then it's the preceding set that were in effect at the time when you might look at a subsequent set of rules. So again, the last time we have any rules of the Georgia Republican Party that show any sign that they were both certified and filed with the Georgia Secretary of State's office were in 2013. And what does that mean? That means, according to the literal written word of the law, that means that John Pageant is still the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party.
Because nothing's ever been filed that changes that, is what you're finding, right?
That's the way the law is written.
So Hank,
Todd, you had a question?
Yeah, it just seems, I mean, to me, it's just obvious that the whole infrastructure has been thinking very, very hard about how to do this, because the mental gymnastics they had to jump through to get this. This isn't an accident, I guess, is my point. This was calculated. Do you agree?
These are learned people.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. And I know what they're doing. And if anybody who looks into this, you'll know what they're doing too. But the question then becomes, okay, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Well, you know what? They've been asked this question over and over and over, and nobody's ever responded, except to say that we can't do anything about this until some lawsuit with John Pageant is over. Nonsense. Because both of these entities are not the same entity. The Georgia Republican Party is not the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. They have nothing to do with each other. They're in different titles of law. And so if John Pageant and Georgia Republican Party, Inc. have a problem with each other, that's okay. That's got nothing to do with our political party. That's them. That's not us. And so the Georgia Republican Party has been taken away from the members of the party. And that's where we stand today. They will not rectify this, and they continue to gaslight Republicans, in all of the Republicans in the state, that they're members of something that doesn't have members. You see, none of this makes any sense whatsoever. The only way they can maintain this is by continuing to gaslight everybody that is involved with the Georgia Republican Party.
That's a great lead in for where I want to go next. So folks have looked at this and the document that up until recently has existed, called the Rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. And when I've asked questions, when you've asked questions, typically the leadership of whatever this organization is has referred back to, oh, well, they're available on the GOP website. And what's been available on the GOP website until quite recently was that version.
That's right.
It's an unsigned version. There's no certification stamp on it. Yet folks for, I think 4 years have referred and pointed to that and said, well, that's the one that those are the rules. Those are the rules. Yet they don't appear to be signed. They don't appear to be filed. And yet you can see the date. Well, maybe you can't see the date on our screen, but in fact, that is dated June 17th, 2020.
Yeah.
But notice all this time it's remained unsigned. Now, in the beginning of February, we again surfaced this, middle of February, we again surfaced this issue and noted that certain aspects of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc., even though the foundation documents of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. say they have no members, this document includes over 100 references to member or members. So that in and of itself struck a number of people as odd. In addition,
are astounding.
Yeah. In addition, court documents that were filed in the midst of trying to completely seal off, in other words, redact an agreement that had been formed between John Padgett and a former plaintiff, and including the Georgia Republican Party, or Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Those documents indicated again to the court directly that they said the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. does not have members they called it in a traditional sense, like stakeholders. Okay, so there are no members, yet this document and others refer to members. How could that possibly be? Then about a month ago, you noticed something very odd show up, and I want to go through this very methodically. I want people to understand what happened. This document existed for about 4 years. And then just about a month ago in March, something changed. Why don't you take us through the next change?
Yeah, I don't even know why I went to the Georgia Republican Party or the gagop.org website. Maybe I was looking for a set of rules and couldn't find them readily, and I thought I would download another set. And then I open it up, and lo and behold, all of a sudden there's a signature on it. There you go. So who's that signed by? That's signed by Josh McCoon, chairman, Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Notice the date is the same. So all they did was it appears for all intents and purposes that they whited out David Schaefer's name, and then drew a line and typed in Josh McCoon, and then Josh McCoon signed his name as if he were the chairman in June of 2020. Well, he was not the chairman in June of 2020. He didn't become the chairman until June of 2023. If there even is a chairman, because the corporation doesn't have a chairman, the corporation has the titles are not even the same. So here it is. Josh McCoon's signature shows up on this. So I started asking questions, and what I understood now is that Mr. McCoon was asked, where are the certified copies of the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc.? And he couldn't find them. From what I understand, he called all around, couldn't find them. So what did he do? Obviously, you see it on your screen. He changed the title block on it, changed the signature block, and then wrote in his own name there, signing it as if he were the chairman in 2020. Now, the chairman in 2020 was David Schaefer, and in the 2019 rules, David refused to sign, or maybe it wasn't a big issue. Maybe he just struck through it and wouldn't sign the Inc. Rules. And the 2020 rules, he didn't sign at all. So, you're having to read a lot of things into this. And I don't think Mr. Schaefer is ready to say that anything nefarious is going on with this, and I don't blame him. But it sure doesn't look right. It sure doesn't look right. And so we have these rules that you're looking at right here are the rules that are listed on the call that is supposedly authorizing this entire election season leading up to the Dalton Republican convention in June. And so everything that's been happening from the precinct meetings to the county conventions to your district conventions and all the way up to the Dalton convention is being carried out under the auspices of, under the authority of these rules. And we just showed you these rules are not certified. And now there's a real question about whether these rules have been filed. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that these latest rules that we're seeing here have been filed, which means that they're invalid because it says in 11.2, the rules and amendments do not become effective until they're certified and filed with the Secretary of State's office. However, there was a set of rules that back in 2023 that were not signed, that were conveyed according to two emails, one from General Counsel Kaufman to the General Counsel with the Georgia Republican Party / Inc. with the General Counsel of Brad Raffensperger, in which Mr. Kaufman asked Mrs. McGowan to tell them whether these rules sufficed for their requirements under 21-2-110. And Ms. McGowan, I'm not looking at it, but Ms. McGowan said that she believed that this fulfilled their requirements under Title 21. Now,
hang on, I need to ask a question. So
okay.
She used the word believed.
Yes.
Now, Ms. McGowan is also the same person that, at the request of the State Election Board, refused to give them evidence that she had in her possession regarding the ballots of Fulton County. So does it strike you as interesting that she would pick the word believed as opposed to yes or no?
Well, yes. When you use the word believe, then no one can know your heart except the Lord above. So no one's going to know. You can always say, well, I did believe it. I did say that I believe that this was true, but it turned out it wasn't true. You can't get them on anything on that.
And once again, we have no evidence that these have been filed, right? And dated with a stamp.
The only thing that we have evidence of is an email from Mr. Kaufman to Ms. McGowan saying, I have forwarded certain rules to you. Does this fulfill our requirement? And I'm paraphrasing. Does this fulfill our requirement under Title 21? And then she said, I'm in receipt of that, again, paraphrasing, and I believe that this fulfills your requirements under Title 21. Now, obviously, she did not have the Title 21 in front of her because she would have seen that, number one, let's just look at this. According to Title 21-2-110, the contact information, names, addresses, phone numbers, and everybody of the governing committee have got to be filed as well. Well, the governing committee of the Georgia Republican Party is a committee that's known in the rules as the state committee, and it's well over 100 people, maybe 150, 170 people that are on that committee. Well, none of those people, their names are not filed with the Georgia Secretary of State's office. And so obviously Ms. McGowan must have made a mistake if she said that merely filing an unsigned set of rules in an email is going to satisfy that requirement, because It's it. There's again, we got footballs, we got baseballs, and they're not the same here.
So Hank, let me ask you, I mean, there's these filing requirements. They haven't been done for years. We can't find the formation documents at the Secretary of State and even check the archives for the political party itself. I mean, there's a question that could be asked: does the political party even exist at this point legally?
Well, that there is a germane question there. I maintain that it does, but it's just out of compliance. I believe it does exist because once, if you look at Title 21 and you read through it, it tells you about the creation of political parties, but there's no provision in the law to abandon a political party or for it to become non-existent. Once you can't get rid of it. So it's there in perpetuity, but if you don't maintain the information with the Secretary of State's office, it goes into a non-compliant status.
So this is a tactic. Sorry, Bill, real quick. This is a tactic in Miami-Dade. I'm on the Miami-Dade Republican Executive Committee, at least until a few months ago. They just completely did not file required filing so that the grassroots could see what was going on in the party. So there's like they're just not following the rule of law, and they can get away with it, so they keep doing it. Is my sense.
That's what they seem to be doing. But I look at a lot of other things too. It makes you kind of wonder, why are they doing this? And I talked about baseball rules and football rules, and they're different and all that. So one of the differences here is like in a nonprofit corporation, if you had members, all the members they're entitled to see the books. They're entitled to see all the books. But if you have a nonprofit that doesn't have members, then there's a very elite club of people that have access to the books. And the very top individual in it, being the chairman, has the right to say, okay, who gets to see the books and who doesn't get to see the books. And by virtue of the fact that this nonprofit does not have members, then that's a really tightly knit club. And so here it is. Last week over in Gainesville, we heard the treasurer of the Georgia Republican Party, and let me say that the elected treasurer, this is like part of our Republican form of government here. She's authorized by the people to deal in the financial aspects of the Georgia Republican Party. All of them. She's elected. She's elected to see everything about the books, because you want someone that is accountable to the people to be able to be accountable, but also be able to see what she's being accountable for. And she tells us that she doesn't get to see any of the books. All she sees is a list of items in a QuickBooks, and then she looks in to see whether they balance with what's on the FEC report. That is the job of the Georgia Republican Party Inc. treasurer, is to make sure that the bank balances with the report. But other than that, she's got no idea, according to Miss McLean, of where those numbers come from. And I also say, it's like, okay, how do you even know how many bank accounts that this nonprofit corporation might have? How do you know that you're seeing all of the information? Because nonprofit corporations, they don't have to tell you anything. They don't have to tell you about their books beyond what they have to report to the government. And because it's a nonprofit corporation and not a political party, they're telling you certain things about the political party, but is that everything? Obviously not, because you have a political party and you have a corporation. So there's two different functions there. And was it one big pile of money, or is it in different accounts? Nobody knows.
Yeah. So one of the characteristics of situations like this, when there's something to be hidden, in my humble opinion, is that people begin to scurry around and make changes, but don't have time to consider the impact of those changes. This strange signature that showed up after 4 years some might call that an example of it. Others might call, trying to divert attention away from this by using others could be another tactic. And we're going to hear about how at the federal level that's been being done. One of the things that I found fascinating was One of the folks that's lost a lot of credibility, if not all, in the public arena overnight called you sort of called you a conspiracy theorist, which I thought, wow, we're dragging one out of mothballs, you know. Donald Trump Jr.
And everything that I was saying then came true. But
I think he works for Putin too. That's what I heard.
Yeah, Donald Trump Jr. in October of last year said that, you know, folks that were conspiracy theorists are really nothing more than folks that have really good pattern recognition. They can see signals created by things that don't fit very well.
Yeah. Before we change subjects, let me say this one thing about those rules that are signed by, ostensibly, but I didn't see him sign them. Maybe it's a stamp, I don't know, by Josh McCoon. If you look on page 40 of those documents of that set of rules, page 40 says, there it is, says that the actual chairman is not Josh McCoon, it's David Schaefer. So the rules that are authorizing the call that is going to culminate in the Dalton Convention show that there's two different chairmen here. And obviously these rules are not filed. Who would file something like this?
Yeah.
I mean, so these rules are, all of this is called into question here.
Yeah.
How on earth can these people keep this up? How do they do it with a straight face? That's how I don't understand how they do it with a straight face.
I can't keep a straight face as you're describing it.
I've been referring to people like Josh McCoon for quite a while as an actor. These people are actors. They're really good. They're convincing, and they get right in front of the camera and they will tell you something that's not true, and they will not flinch, and they will stick to that story like grim death. They will not let go of it, because as soon as they do, they are destroyed. They are absolutely destroyed by this if they ever admit what the truth is in all of this. It's insane.
We heard one of those in the last couple of weeks, you know, when the story on Jaquan Stembridge came out. Josh came around the front of the table and said, well, now I want to be completely transparent, or something to that effect. I never told him to leave the race. Well, yes, you never told him. You asked him. You asked him, and you gave him an incentive to do so. That's not telling him.
No.
So, you know, again, it's trying to slice truth into two pieces, I guess.
Calling these people actors is really insightful, Hank, because we've seen that all over the country, if not all over the world, where you have people in positions of power that are really just doing what they're told, and have, you know, you can see it and spot it eventually.
Well, you guys are on this, you do enough on the air to know that there's a certain amount of acting that goes along with it. You have to play the part and all that. And so it's going to happen with politicians. They're all actors, but these are some really good actors, especially when they're looking you in the face and you're telling you something that's not true, and they're not going to come off of it, and they're going to try. But you said something a minute ago, Bill, I want to touch about. So I heard this afternoon that Josh McCoon is being asked about this by people that are really wondering, okay, what's going on with this? And so here was his answer. Now, I was at an event with Bill about 2 weeks or so up in Gainesville at the Hall County Republican Party, where Josh McCoon was speaking. Now, when it came to Q&A, there was going to be about 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A. So I'm there. I could ask him any question I want to. I did not ask him about the ink. The reason why I did not ask him, because that would be a 2-hour debate. And you cannot possibly have something like that. That would be so inconsiderate of me to take over this entire event with a question like that. So I asked him a softball question, really. I didn't have to, but I did ask him a softball question. So he's now, from what I hear this afternoon, he's now saying, well, Hank had the opportunity to ask me up there in Gainesville, and he didn't ask me. Oh, I'm just going to take over this entire event for 2 hours, and we're going to stand here and have a debate while other people want to ask you questions. I mean, that's how they divert. That's the actor in them. They have to be swift on their feet and be able to react to something, get away from the questioner, go on down the road, and see if they can escape with without having to reveal anything. That's the art of it all. That's politics for you.
I wish we had time travel and we'd take you back and you could ask the question. And then today, probably the answer would have been, well, he took the entire meeting off track by asking about something that isn't really an issue anyway. It's just a paperwork thing. It'll,
Yeah.
How
I
interesting.
heard that today, though, and I thought,
Oh,
my goodness. So he's not going to answer their question. He's going to divert to say, well, Hank could have asked me that question last week, and he didn't. So I got to go.
Hank, well,
Wow.
The amount of work you've put in on just this one issue, even though it's grown and grown and grown and grown, is amazing.
Well, I have not been alone in any of this. I am not. I wouldn't have even known about this one for other people. Go Reclaim Georgia and Sarah Thompson. It's amazing the amount of information that has come to me from sources that have really been doing the hard work. And I'm just the messenger here. I guess I'm blessed to be able to understand it finally. And once I got it. And so I guess I'm the messenger and all that. But there's
pretty soon they'll be saying you really don't understand it, I bet.
Maybe so.
Hank, we're going to take a break and pay some bills. If you want to stick around, I'm going to cover another topic that I think you've done some work on. I'd like to get your thoughts on that too, if that's okay.
All right, I'm going to grab a drink and I'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
So one of the things we are working on is health, and it is really important that you have good nutrition, and hopefully you're learning about the molecular level stuff that's really harming Americans and make us unhealthy. We have a site, cdmnutrition.com, where we talk about how to fix that. I'm going to run an ad with John B. Wells. We've developed a product where you can stay healthy and get everything you need. Here we go.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this, but that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mix it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
So this is the Nucleo Boost. If you go to CDM Nutrition, you can check out all the properties. It's essentially filling in the potholes of your nutrition. So when a disease does come your way, your body's ready to handle it, and it gets it into the cell at the molecular level. And you can check out the subscription monthly. It's cheaper than just buying it one-off. But we've had a lot of success. People are giving us really good reviews, and it's selling. So thank you for the audience on that. Back to you, Bill.
Okay, let's bring Hank back in. Hank, you back? There you are.
I am.
So I want to play a video from a meeting with Trump and Rubio, I believe earlier today or yesterday. And they've uncovered yet again more information that has to do with keeping information from people, silencing people, and preventing communication. I want to play this first, and then we're going to come back.
Okay.
Out of the business of why it wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not.
Let's try that one more time.
them, there's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Me or Elon? We can follow up with the media story.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about the Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency.
Okay, take those two words and stick them in the back of your mind for just a moment, both us and the listeners. When you need to, when you want to be able to stifle truth and the ability to share truth, what do? They stand in the way of open communications. And we are actually seeing that play out in the same context as what we were just discussing with the Georgia GOP. So this is the NDA required for folks to get the list of all delegates and alternates back in 2023. You'll recall that, in fact, Josh McKoon was elected in June 2023, the 10th, if I recall correctly. And this is what they needed to sign. And it had certain stipulations and certain standards, but was essentially one page in the signature block. That's changed. And now this is the length of the current NDA. And just to make sure we illustrate it properly, there it is. And within that, they have now included a stipulation of non-disparagement. Now, what is disparagement? Well, they don't really tell you that. So could that be saying that you don't like Josh's haircut, or the way that Lori McLean speaks, or you don't like the color of the logo? We don't know. The problem with all of these kinds of things is it is completely one-sided. Attorneys that have reviewed this have, in most cases, told their clients, from what I am told, no way you sign anything like this. This is completely one-sided. They're in their judgment, they get to do what they want to you and can fine you $25,000 for everything they deem to be a violation of this agreement. And they've locked it down in such ways to prevent, very, very frankly, even challenging their judgment as to what might be a violation. So you can imagine, if you were to do something and they called it, well, you violated it 10 times, they now have, it isn't even a penalty. They're calling it liquidated damages to the tune of $250,000. Okay?
I would just say this, that you didn't have to do anything. All you had to do is sign that document, and they could take you to court and say that you did, and they could ruin you. Anyone who would sign that document is a fool. I've never known anyone who is happy having signed an NDA. That anyone who would sign something like that is taking their financial future and putting it at risk. But no one should be able to. No one should do that.
The key is the effective function of this is to put fear in those that might ask to get a copy of the delegate and alternate list, and also open the door for those that they deem that perhaps they don't even just like them, that they might find violations or might find things that they claim have been done in opposition to this agreement. The key is the ability to communicate should be a staple. It's freedom of speech is a foundation, I believe, of the Republican Party's platform. The ability to reach people that will be deciding on your role going forward, if in fact you're a candidate, should be part of what's provided. Why are they guarding it so hard, and why are they providing these horrific measures against folks is unknown, but it seems to be in a series of decisions that are meant to, in some ways, really intimidate folks. We'll be doing a article sometime in the next few days about something we call the Men in Black. And when we were covering I'll call it trial, but it wasn't really a trial of BKP when he was at the hearings at the Eagles Club, we were having a conversation outside and were approached by two gentlemen in black suits, black ties, black shoes, and they had the little curly Q, radios in their ears. They had little pins, and they looked very much like Men in Black. I thought, boy, the next step is they're going to take out the neuralizer, and we're going to forget our middle name.
Josh McCoon does not play by rules. The rules, even if these were authentic rules of the party, he doesn't abide by those rules. The way he had operated to remove Brian Pritchard from the first vice chair position in the party, he followed no rules. He had no authority to call the state committee together, yet he did. Unless you get the executive committee together and they vote for a resolution to give you that authority, the chief executive has no authority, but that's what he did. I mean, so there are no rules when you're at the highest level of the Georgia Republican Party. They make up their own rules. Josh McCoon.
If you wanted to keep grassroots, freedom-loving Americans, pro-Trump Americans, out of the party and out of the way of whatever decisions you're making, you'd do something like this. I mean, what other reason could there be?
They're not looking for free and fair discussion of who should be running the party. I'll say that. Yeah. And so why would they do this? What is it for them? I mean, this job doesn't pay anything. So what's the goodie that all these people get out of it? They're just that patriotic?
Yeah. It's power. It's power, and power being used in dark ways, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's at least power.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's at least power. I think that when this regime is out, there should be a full-blown audit of the Georgia Republican Party Incorporated books, all of the books for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and court documents, because they've gone to the extent to hide a 30 or 40 page settlement, hide it like in perpetuity, longer than the JFK files have been put away. So one of the things that I note over the last couple of weeks is in debates and speeches by David Cross and Josh McCoon, it's come up again and again and again that, who did what during the 2024 cycle and election. And Mr. McCoon is quick to take broad credit for organizing, paying for, and so forth. And we've shown that most of the paying for actually came from the Republican National Committee, the Senate Republican Committee, Trump Force 47, and Trump's own campaign fund. But more importantly, he seems to imply that a lot of the brains behind it, came straight from his desk. He often neglects to mention other people on the team if he mentions them at all. What was very interesting to me was last night. There were two commissioner slots open in Cobb County. Cobb County, the same county that happened to move more blue under the past 4 years, and during which Sally Grubbs had been running the GOP in Cobb County. So they moved more blue, and then all of a sudden last night, there's a set of elections for commissioners. I don't know the total number of votes cast, but I suspect it's in the maybe 8,000 range total. So I think that's about correct. It could be a slightly higher. But more importantly, there's a small race that you would think that an expert in election management and influence would be able to secure pretty close race, if not the win, right? And yet both of those slots went to the Dems. How could that be when we have an expert, someone that's done a great job leading the party to get Trump into office with, millions of votes, and yet, getting 2 county commissioners to the tune of probably less than 5 figures of votes elected. How could that possibly be?
It looks like somebody's asleep at the wheel. And what we're discussing tonight is kind of emblematic of all of that. Look at how Josh McCoon has divided the party. This is how Democrats win, when the party is divided. Are we the ones dividing the party? Look, I'm a Lincolnian Republican. That's where my roots are. You can't say I'm not a Republican, but that's what's going on here. He's dividing the party because I don't believe he's been honest. And that's the first thing I look for. I can deal with people on an issue by issue basis, and we can disagree. I can respect your opinion, but we can't have that same discussion if you're not going to be honest. And I don't believe these people are honest with us. And so that's the divider right there. We got to have people in our office, not only in the Republican Party, but that's where our candidates come to become officers in the government. And that's how all of this works. And so if they're brought up in a political party that's dishonest, what are they going to be when they get into the office? When that same party elected them by rules that don't even exist. I mean, this is absurd. The absurdity of this is just overwhelming.
It seems like when you're living in an environment that doesn't run by rules, what are you going to get to be? You're going to be an expert at not following rules, aren't you?
Right. That's how you advance in a system like that.
So one of the things that we've talked about, well, let me make one more comment. And that is a lot of stuff that I heard this past weekend when we were going through the district conventions, a lot of things I intercepted online, and things that I've heard just in the last couple of days reinforce again and again and again 2 themes that people want. They want trust and they want transparency. And it just keeps coming up again and again and again. You said audit earlier. What does audit give you? It gives you transparency to the nature of what's been done, right? And so those, I believe, are key themes as we go forward between here and to the state convention in the first week of June. The other thing is we are seeing people, and we're going to segue into a little different way of looking at stuff. We're seeing people move left and right. They're moving. Some people that we thought were good, we're finding out they may not be quite as good. And some people that we thought were bad are seeming to come back and do some, if not all, of the right things. And it's kind of this, people are moving from one side to the other. And I'll just refer to it as good and bad, for lack of a better term to describe it. And what struck me, we were in another discussion earlier today, and what struck me was this is very similar to something that Alex Jones had said a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to reinforce that for folks because I actually do think that this has meaning. And, he's been right quite a number of times in the past, and I think he might be on to something yet again. And that is—
Who did you say? I missed the name.
Alex Jones.
Oh, Alex Jones. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So we've got about 6 minutes left. Let me go ahead and play this, and then we may get a chance to make some comments on it.
All right.
Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, it's all there. And then I see it happening. It says that during these big times of change, that you'll see the best out of the good people and the worst out of the bad people. And some people you thought were good are going to really activate and show you their real cards, that they really are servants of evil or really slaves of evil. And then you're going to see some people you thought weren't good that are going to be touched and make the decision to be strong for liberty. That'll be some of our greatest champions.
Yes.
And that you're not going to really see people in the middle anymore, that big middle of people passing the buck. God said you were hot nor cold. You were lukewarm. I spit you out of my mouth. And so we're going into really the beginning. It's going to get way more intense in my view. If any prediction, it's that. If people think things are wild now and tumultuous, this is going to be seen as the calm before the storm. And so there's going to be nowhere to be in the middle. People are going to have to choose a side. And those that have chosen evil, chosen the establishment, chosen the satanic world order, are going to get deeper and deeper into their devotion, their hysteria, their violence, trying to prop it up, because deep down they're scared, and they have form of Stockholm syndrome where they go to the abuser and think if they prostrate themselves before it, somehow they'll be given deliverance, when really they just need to repent and ask God to come in to their heart and cleanse them and then rise them up to be a soldier against this evil in this key time. But there'll be no room for anybody in the middle in the time we're in. And I'm talking to so many people that weren't even Christian or weren't even religious or weren't even spiritual who are saying it's good versus evil. And I talk to so many people I know that are professionals, and they...
I want to stop it there because I think you've actually been in meeting rooms with me when I've asked that question of folks, and I've asked, and I often ask, are we in a war? And then folks will say yes. And I'll say, are we in a spiritual war? And in almost every case, they'll say yes. And they don't know why exactly they say yes. They don't know exactly all the things it might mean, but there's a sense that there's something bigger at play here, and there is a movement in a spiritual type of realm that is splitting. It's splitting people between good and bad.
Yeah. In the last 10 years, I've learned more about the Bible just observing life than I would if I spent 24 hours a day in the church, because you can read the Bible, but until you see it play out in the world, it doesn't mean anything. What is good and what is evil when it's just an academic idea until you actually see it actually playing out in front of you. And then you go, okay, I get what he was talking about now. And over the past decade, my goodness, I have seen the Bible playing out in front of me like it is alive. I mean, it is alive, but it is alive in the hearts of men. And this entire set of events that this generation is living through. I can't speak for all the other ones. I'm sure they live through it again, but this is just alive with biblical events. And it's hard to fathom that we are this generation that are living through these events.
Yeah, it's a very, very exciting time to be alive, actually, because as you say, you're seeing all this. 30 years ago, we kind of gave it lip service, but right now it's real. It's right in front of you, man.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's getting, I think, clearer as we move forward. Years ago we marched through life and everybody was heads down trying to make sure they get their bills paid and their kids taken care of and everything else. We probably walked by a bunch of stuff, but over the past 3 years, it seems to have gotten more and more in our face. Grammy actors dressing like devils and having women painted in red dancing at their feet, and mocking the Last Supper at the Olympics, golden calf up on the wall at the Olympics, and then even locally things that are clearly in question. Folks that claim to be very spiritual yet seem to have the trappings of I'll call it unclean symbolism around them. That are unmistakable to those who know what to look for.
If I could leave your audience with one or maybe two things here, one of the things I've learned is I hate to say it, but trust but verify, and it's kind of the point where I just assume someone's lying to me until they prove or events prove that what they're saying is true. And in politics, that's really got to be the way that you look at it. I tell people that go into politics, look, don't trust anybody down there. Just keep your head down, do the work of the people, and you'll be fine. But other than that, don't trust anybody. But over and over and over, they get mixed up in it. Next thing you know, you don't even know the person anymore. They get locked up into this because as soon as you walk into it and you embrace it, you become it, and you can't do that. It doesn't work out that way. But the other thing is that the people have got to wise the heck up. You're not being told the truth. You've got to wise up. Do your own research. Get to the bottom of things. Don't trust what you're hearing on the radio. They have a law where they can propagandize you and you'll never know it. They passed a law back in 2012 that allowed the government to propagandize the American people, and they've been doing it ever since. They did it before, but now it's just like unhinged. Don't believe any of this crap. It's not true. Do your own research and find out what the truth is.
Smart
Good points,
moves.
good points.
Todd, last thoughts?
No, I think that says it all right there. Good way to end the show, unless you have anything
And
else.
thank you guys for doing this, because I know you guys, I know your hearts, and I know that you're trying to pursue the truth and put it out for the people. And thank you.
That's very kind. We love kicking deep state ass. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
All right. We will see you guys next time. We'll be here again on Sunday at 2 p.m. And Todd will be on the Skiff
tomorrow. The Skiff, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday Eastern. So check us out.
Let me plug my Substack. Let me plug my.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Please do.
HankSullivan.substack.com. HankSullivan.substack.com. Next one will be coming out pretty quickly. Now,
That's
I'm
right.
in
You've
series
had,
right now.
unless I'm mistaken, you had 3 or 4 out in the last 2 weeks, haven't you?
That's right.
All right.
Working feverishly.
Hank Sullivan .substack.com.
.com.
.com. Thank you. All right. We will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.